There's never been a more critical time in the entire medical marijuana movement than this moment for a variety of reasons. I mean, we have, as we all are hearing, the City of LA's effort to ban medical marijuana dispensaries. It has been termed a soft ban, but what it really is an actual ban. This is going through the City Council right now, and we don't know when the vote is going to happen, but it's very clear it's going to pass. And the effect of this ban is that everybody, period, end of story, is going to be considered an unpermitted use in the city. That LA tends to be kind of the hub that sets policy for the rest of the state, and you can imagine this is going to have a trickling effect. So by passing the ban, they're giving themselves the mechanism to file lawsuits. When they file one of these lawsuits, what can you do? Well, actually, you can fight back, because with the Supreme Court still undecided on the issue of whether or not a city can permit or not medical marijuana activities, I don't believe any judge is going to uphold a TRO request or an injunction on behalf of the city to stop your activities. So it would go like this. They serve you with a lawsuit, you go in front of the judge, and you say, well, Judge, the law isn't clear yet, and we don't know what the law is on this issue. You can't deny us our rights, which were passed through an initiative, which is supposed to be the strongest way to have laws in our state. You can't deny that right until you know what the state law really is. There's tremendous litigation expenses. There's depositions. There's lots of approaches to it, but to do an aggressive fight back approach and stay open, it's expensive. One thing that PCA is doing here, and the reason I'm really behind this, is that to organize ourselves as a group, we have the economies of scale, we have the ability of relying on each other to save money and to use each other's support to have a unified voice and a unified presence. But something else that's happening is really terrifying right now is the federal government is coming in like gangbusters to try to eliminate medical marijuana. And they're doing it. And it's happening. Last week, 30 letters went out in LA County seeking to forfeit your landlord's property if they don't agree to evict you. And they give you a 14-day window where they say you have to close within 14 days. PCA is doing everything they can, and I've been very impressed by the platforms that they've presented to me, to lobby both state and federal legislatures, and to file lawsuits, and to organize groups of people and disseminate information so we know where we stand and what we can do. I mean, one thing that is clear, the demand of marijuana, forget about medical marijuana, the demand of marijuana is not going away. In fact, it's ever increasing. And the supply is not going away. But the feds are attacking the distribution. And we're in a tipping point right now for marijuana. And the tipping point is that marijuana is on an irreversible momentum towards legalization in this country. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not going away anytime soon. But when you're trying to change attitudes and you're in that tipping point, you meet the greatest resistance. And the resistance becomes less and less reasonable as you move towards changing the attitudes. And we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And we're feeling it more than ever right now. There's efforts to reschedule marijuana. And I think we're going to have that too. Again, it's part of this irreversible momentum, but we're not there yet. And you people are the heroes. You're out there, and without me even telling you, you guys know you're taking risks. You see people around you getting busted, and grows getting raided, and people going to jail, and some people getting sucked into federal cases, and you're still here. There's things that you all need to do to show that you're in compliance with the Medical Marijuana Program Act. Like, you should be testing all your medicine. You know, as a criminal lawyer, when I walk into court with proof that these people are testing all the medicine, that's impressive to the district attorney and to the judges. Because why would you spend money to do this if you're trying to make a profit? There's just unlimited benefits as they happen on how we can, as a group, be effective and be heard for the benefits of the patients. And you guys want to stay in this game, I know. But, you know, somebody in here over the next 30 days is going to be busted. Somebody in here over the next 30 days is going to receive a letter from the federal government. But if we stick together, we'll have an easier time to stand up to the problems than if we're just isolated out there by ourselves, and then they can just pick us off one at a time.
Tylenol or Advil or anything else, NyQuil, there are taxes that are associated with that. And so this was one of the original problems, is because there's these two levels, and most people thought, oh, we're, pharmacy, we're, giving out medication, we shouldn't be taxed, but because of that aspect, over-the-counter drugs, they are taxed, and it's been allowed pretty much from the beginning. And also, Eric, when it does come to the Board of Equalization, they have been extremely aggressive. I've never seen anything like it. Like I said, they are waiting outside, they are counting patients, and a lot of times they are taking very strange estimates coming in at rush hour, and also they're not able to distinguish, who's a vendor or a farmer and bringing product in, also who's doing a sales call, who's coming in to check out the place. They're just counting every single person. But the trick is to have good documentation, and I've actually won cases where they have tried to say, you've got bad numbers and we've been counting, and we've gone in there with real hard receipts and not had to pay a cent. And the other thing is the end of year taxes as well. Even though the federal government doesn't completely, they don't endorse what we're doing, they still want these end of year tax returns, which is so bizarre. Again, they can come after you. It's unlike the state where, BOE, yes, they are knocking on your door, but at least you can be honest with them. Hey, we're medical marijuana, and they're happy to, that you're being honest. Same with the EDD, the employment people. You can be honest with them. Everyone in California, they don't even care about the city issue, the BOE. They're like, hey, LA has a problem, we don't have a problem. They'll give anybody licenses, at this point, as long as it's state law. But the feds, in the other sense, they're not endorsing this at all. And in the same sense, they're threatening to come and bust you. But I talked to them, and they want you to pay your taxes. It is so interesting. I mean, we're still just infants, practically, as an industry. And they know we run organized. And in fact, in the early days, a lot of people were giving bad advice, saying, tear up receipts. These things can be used against you. So there isn't a lot of documentation from the early days. So they know this, and that's one of the reasons why they're coming after you guys, not just to even bust you, but just to shake you down, and just to pay off the deficit, and especially here in California. And that's really what BOE's tactic has been, and why they're harassing everyone, especially in the Valley. And even when they're done with you, and you pass the test, they will come back 6 months to a year later, do it again to see if they can trip you up. So, they're definitely, if you didn't learn it the first time, you learn it the second time. When they come back, you've got to keep everything. So again, like I said, keep the best records you can. If you don't have a bookkeeper, get a bookkeeper. You're going to need end of year accountants and quarterly accountants. That's where people like me come in, but you need some help. There's no question about it. And make sure, that you guys, have a professional you're working with. But, so you can keep these taxes down. Obviously, the end of year taxes, you guys are all familiar with the corporate dues. You owe $800 minimum to the state of California to have your corporations, and any additional surplus funds will be taxed. Obviously, as you guys know, you're all domestic nonprofits, but as far as the feds go, you are not a nonprofit. You are just a corporation, a for-profit entity, as they see it. Again, we don't call it profit in the sense that there's money left over, it's just surplus funds. Again, hopefully you're reinvesting that back into your collective, or giving it back in a sense to your patients, but if there is anything kept and rolled over, it will be taxed. And that can be a heavy burden. Some of you guys had some surplus, and it does, it does take away a lot of capital, from the business.
We were one of the first testing labs in California. We had a lot of firsts underneath our belt and looking to change how testing is done, so it was more beneficial to the patient and dispensaries. We have the most visited website for a medical cannabis laboratory. So not only do we test medicine, we work to bring more patients to the collective as those patients can identify which medicines are best for them. We are a pioneer in strain testing in terms of the information that we give patients. We were the very first lab to put strain information on the internet so that people could take a look, and we're still one of the most diversified in doing so. One of the other things we introduced was an ailment-based approach. It's sort of a funny story, and I'm sure everybody as a dispensary owner knows this. You get a kind of a patient that walks in and you go, well, what's the best you have? While you're sitting with 30 strains. But that's honestly the wrong question. And especially as a cancer patient that may be coming through your door. Maybe it's an elderly cancer patient that has no idea where to start. And so we find that the more realistic question is, what's your highest THC? But more importantly, I have back pain and I want to make sure I don't fall asleep when I drive. I have a severe anxiety problem, but what I don't want is to become paranoid. And so this is where testing with the Bud Genius methodology allows patients to be able to answer these questions and then narrow that down to 2 or 3 strains, and then the patient can then ask your experts, of these 3 strains, which do you think might help me best? And so they can do that research just by looking at the strain ID cards in the cabinet, or they can look at that information online. If cannabis isn't tested properly, it can shift almost 5 to 6% in those THC levels. So you need to be careful that you're choosing a lab that's reputable, not just getting a number or a high THC number that sits within, that you can put next to your medicine for marketing purposes. It's important to the patient. It's important when somebody says they're testing for molds that they actually are. Bud Genius is one of the few labs out there that we don't take a product into our laboratory without at least giving it a basic mold and basic pesticide test. We don't want anything to leave our laboratory that hasn't at least been checked from the basic level for these types of things, and you'll be surprised how much we catch. We're not afraid to tell you, sorry, that came back 6% THC. Some labs are. They're afraid to lose you as a customer. For us, it's about the integrity of our brand, and when people see Bud Genius, they know that that information is accurate. We want to bring you patients, and we want you to keep the patients you have. We know that you spend a tremendous amount on advertising to be able to bring patients in the door, and once you do, you don't want somebody else, taking them away because somebody just dropped the price, $2 or $5 or things of that nature. You work hard to be able to build that community, and we want to build services and social internet tools so that you can keep that community engaged with you in a way that doesn't require more labor from your side to do it. We want to lower federal pressure that you have on your head, and there's ways that we can do that with, as both Eric and Lee have mentioned, with testing and the BG Services Program.
We're a trade association. We're a registered 501c6, and a lot of you know what a 501c3 is because that's how you operate your dispensary collectives. A 501c6 is set up for trade associations. And you've heard of trade associations before. You've heard of the Bar Association, which Eric is a member. That's where all the lawyers work. You've heard of Major League Baseball. That's where all the baseball players work. And these trade associations are organized to serve the interests of the people who work in that industry. Together, we can be more successful than we can be alone. Has anyone ever heard that before about anything else in their lives? All right, that's why families stick together. That's why teams stick together. You play together, you win games. So that's what we are about. We are trying to bring forth an organization that unites this community. Sooner or later we're going to talk to you about membership and helping us do this and getting organized and taking some chances on putting money into causes that make sense. And so what this whole event was about tonight was presenting to you that through the individuals you heard from, that we're serious about getting serious. It was also about, we're serious about having you come join us. We don't have subpoena power. This is a voluntary activity, and we're going to thank every single one of you on the way out the door for coming here. But the message I want you to take away from this, in addition to all the advice that you got and information that's really valuable, is that we are going to continue to be on the cutting edge of this advice. We're going to be continuing on the cutting edge of what's happening politically and legally and what's dynamic in our industry. And we're going to keep inventing new ways to give you something that's useful to the development and protection of your business, your family, and employees and patients that you have. And so our piece of it is to be on top of the politics and get ahead of this. And I can tell you, if we grow this organization to the size that we would like to grow in the next year or so, which is not gigantic, it's just maybe 3 times as big as the room full of people right now, we are going to be in a position to influence the political and legal decision makers in LA more than has ever been done in the history of this industry anywhere. Because I can promise you, the people in this room are dedicated to seeing this thing through. And we can't do it if you all don't buy into the idea that we're stronger together than we are alone. Just like your mom and dad used to say. So, is anybody down for that? I got an amen from anybody out there?
Amen!